March 13th, Friday the 13th. Welcome to my channel. Now, yesterday, I did do a stream, but I didn't go live on my Discord because I had to take my wife to the city for an appointment. But I did trade and pretty much had a nice short in the ES, a little after 10 a.m. Caught that ride down. And literally, as soon as I got out, I had to go to the city with my wife. So, turned out to be a decent day. Now, after that happened, the market was a barcode. That was pretty nasty, pretty ugly. Okay, now, this morning, we went down even farther. But now we're recovering. Back inside yesterday's range. Specifically about the midpoint, 50% retracement of yesterday. That's pretty significant. Okay. Real quick, if we're looking at SPY here, you can see yesterday we closed past that orange bar, which is last week's close. That means we're making new weekly ranges. QQQ still relatively stronger because we're inside last week's range. And you can see here this black line is last Friday's close, last week's close, which means we're a little negative in the QQQ. However, we're right by that right now, pre-market, about 599.70, right? Here's last week's close in the SPY, around 672. We're at 668 right now. So this market is crazy, basically. Okay. Now, remember I told you to watch crude. Now, crude is down today, and guess what? The market's getting lifted up. Now, what happened is the U.S. loosened some oil sanctions on Russia. So that's helping push down crude, hence catching a little bit in the markets. We are in a downtrend. So right now, off the bat, easier trade is a short. Okay. We just came into some heavy resistance right now. We're finally getting a little selling. So let's see what happens with that. Now we have a bunch of data today. We have core PCE data coming out at 8:30. And then at 10 a.m., JOLTS jobs and Michigan consumer sentiment. So, needless to say, if I don't have much going on by 9:45, I'm going to have to wait till 10 a.m. because that does move markets, that Michigan consumer. Okay. Bitcoin's back above 72K as well. So, was 60,000 the bottom? Who knows? Nobody knows, right? So, without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. I use market profile and volume profile to find structure in the markets, along supply and demand, gamma exposure levels, the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. When the market opens, I use my market internals. That's my bread and butter. Anchored VWAPs, little ICT, and my weekly expected move indicator that you can get for free in my Discord. All right, now hopefully every morning you subscribe, set that alert, give you the market story, the economic calendar, the market news, technical analysis, and I leave you guys with long and short trade scenarios in NASDAQ and ES futures. Okay, if you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link, and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Now, yesterday, pre-market, I said I had a bearish bias. Okay. And what happened yesterday, I'm going to show you in a sec when we go over to the market internals. Good morning, Mark. When we go over the market internals, there was a canary in the coal mine there that I talked about yesterday. I talked about it yesterday. Okay. We'll get into that when I look at the internals. All right. Let's move on to the futures watch list now. 8:30 is the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation is this PCE, core PCE. Everything's always core. Okay. 8:30 that comes out. Now, let's look at futures. Ethereum getting love, up 3.06%. Bitcoin up 2.86. Remember, it's at 72,000. Russell finally getting love, right? Why is that? The 10-year yield. 10-year yield was down today. ES up 137. Dow's up 0.37. Dollar's up 0.36. Nasdaq's up 0.35. 30-year bonds slightly being sold. Gold down 0.26. 10-year yield is down 0.28%. Silver's down 1.19. Crude, there you go. Remember, inversely correlated to crude. Crude is down 2.24% to $2.14 a barrel, down to $93.58 a barrel. VIX is down 5%. Okay, we're back under a 26 VIX. Still plenty of volatility in that VIX. Okay, Mag 7 Plus. Coinbase up 3.0, over 3% with Bitcoin. Okay, Tesla's up 0.91, Google up 0.81, AMD up 0.76. Okay, everything is green here except Meta. Meta I saw is canceling some new AI rollout due to like it not performing great. So tech top sectors, Oracle continues to get bought up 0.65. Goldman Sachs up 0.57, Palantir 0.55, Exxon, Caterpillar's all up. Laggards here, the mining stock, NEM, and Salesforce down over 0.5%. Sectors. Leader today, semis up 0.80, technology up 0.44, financials up 0.41, energy up 0.38. Everything is up. Nothing is in the negative. Nothing's in the red right now. Like I said, we came a long way. The low in ES futures was 66.40. We're 60 points above that now. Right in the middle of yesterday's range. Okay, but we're at a crucial spot in the charts. Okay, now moving on to the economic calendar. Let's look at that together. All right, 8:30. So let's look at the PCE. All right, so I'm gonna have to go into one star here to get the core PCE over here. All right. So 8:30, we have PCE, right? Year over year, 2.9, expecting 2.9. Expecting 2.9 was 2.9 last time, so no change expected. The core consensus is 3.1, previous 3, so they're expecting a rise, 0.1. Then we have JOLTS jobs, so expecting 6.7 million, previous 6.54. And Michigan consumer sentiment, the one that moves markets, consensus 55, previous 56. Okay, these will move markets. Okay, if PCE is a nothing burger, if everything is in line, I don't think we move much. But the Michigan consumer sentiment doesn't like shape the market, but it definitely jolts off that number. Okay, looking at Trump's schedule today, we're going at March 13th. It says to be determined. The president departs the White House en route to Palm Beach, Florida. 8 a.m. The president participates in executive time. Let's see. President signs executive orders at 2 p.m. 3 p.m. President participates in a greeting with the national finals rodeo winners. All right. So far we know he can pop in and out and do an interview somehow. Okay. The juice here. Nothing really that I see here that's worth mentioning. Like I said, the only thing that I saw was the Russia sanctions. Let's see here. It's in this other news here. Let's just go to that other news. Right here it is, right here. So, U.S. eases sanctions on Russian oil to ease energy prices inflated by Iran war. The U.S. has issued a 30-day waiver for countries to buy sanctioned Russian petroleum products currently at sea, hoping to ease oil and gas prices driven by the war the U.S. and Israel are waging on Iran. Okay? That is what's going on and probably giving our markets a little boost. Okay? Now, U.S. stock index futures were subdued as widening conflict in the Middle East threatened to stoke price pressures and complicate the Federal Reserve's monetary policy making. Investors were also tracking developments in the private credit market and awaiting a slate of economic data later in the day, including PCE inflation and a second estimate of the U.S. GDP. Oil prices extended the climb, were on track for a strong weekly gains as disruptions from the Middle East war outweighed U.S. and International Energy Agency measures to ease supply concerns. Okay. Now, Adobe CEO is stepping down. Market's not liking that. See, Adobe gets a cut, target price cut from 420 to 420 from 520. Ulta Beauty, Jeffrey's Cart's target price to 635 from 720. Okay. Okay. Let's look at some. I think we could look at some breadth charts here, and that's one of the canary in the coal mines I said yesterday. Okay, let me pull these up. I went over this in detail yesterday, but we're just gonna look at it again. It's always good to look at it, right? Okay, we're gonna start off with the bullish percent index of the S&P 500. We are at 44% on a buy signal. This is weakening. 44%. This was up all the way up here at one point at 67% at the beginning of the year. Finally, weakening. All right, that just means 44% of the S&P 500 stocks are on buy signals. So this what gets kind of oversold once you get into the 30s. So we're tracking it, and that's why I'm looking at it, right? Now, let's look at the NDX. Okay, this is the NASDAQ 100. Notice, like I said yesterday, it's been improved. It improved a ton, over 35%. But look what happened. This is what I was talking about yesterday. I said, hey, every day technology's been leading the dance. Yesterday, it led the dance lower. This was the canary in the coal mine. When the market opened, I saw tech was relatively weak. Okay? And look, it dropped. Now it's still at 51%. Right now, we get more granular to technology, actual technology, which is interesting here. It was flat yesterday. Remember, this is more detail of technology sector. Okay? Software has not been getting beat up that much. It's caught a bid, 52%. Now, overall breadth is your percentage of stocks over the 50-day moving average. Look at this overall breadth. Weakening. Look, folks, we were at 62, 63% for a long time. We just cut that in half. We're at 32% of stocks in the S&P 500 are over the 50-day moving average. This is weakening. Look, this is getting very frothy to the downside. A little oversold here. This is kind of like the territory we haven't been since last November? Right here. If this continues, you just need tech to keep getting weak. This thing's going to fall. You get into the 15% range, 10% on buy signal. I'm sorry, not buy signal. On then pretty much start buying some stuff. Okay? That's why I show you guys these charts. Okay? That was our breadth little stop in. I don't always going to do that, but it's always important because that drove a trade yesterday for myself. Now, we're going to go into market internals, my bread and butter, and show you what I'm talking about. Okay? I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Okay. Now, yesterday, this was the key difference. When the market opened, okay, I want to show you there was a huge divergence. The overall market was bullish, but tech was not. So, this is where you can tell that. This white line is pretty much tracks equal weight ETF RSP. This shows the overall market. If everything was not weighted and it was just equal, Look at the big divergence. Was rocketing up while technology was going lower. Now remember, these bars represent how actual S&P 500 move because they're based on the weights of the sectors in the market. So this is where these internals, I call it the WAD, weighted AD, comes in play. It's a big edge because I knew when I said yesterday to you guys, if you see a day where technology is leading to the downside, that's where we can push lower. Yesterday was that day. And now what I waited for in this area, right here in particular, okay, this is a 5 minute, I'm using a 1 minute, but right in particular, when it broke that kind of equal high here, that's when I got short. I rode that down to like here in futures. Okay. Why? Because equal weight finally drastically caught back down with market cap. That caused this flush. And then since tech was relatively weak yesterday, the market really couldn't rise too much. And then what a horrible looking price action that was. I'm glad I wasn't here. That's horrible. Okay. Now, excuse me. A lot of bearish signals here. 3.47 to 1 of volume going to down stocks versus up stocks. 3 points in the NYSE exchange. 3.68 to the downside of volume going into down stocks versus the up stocks in the Nasdaq exchange. NYSE was a minus 1507 and ADD. Nasdaq, there's the canary in the coal mine as well. Minus 2388. All pops will be sold when you have that number. Nasdaq 100, that's all you need to see. Out of 100 stocks, minus 75 is very bearish. Very bearish. Okay? Very bearish. So, and you can see all day market cap weight stayed under zero while the equal weight tried to fight it and finally lost the battle at the end of the day. Okay? Actually, the laggard of the day, let's see from the open, was industrials. Consumer discretionary. That's your Amazon, your Home Depot, and your Tesla. Overall tech, which is your Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple, Broadcom, Oracle, Salesforce, that stuff. Palantir was down 1.06. Okay? So this market, right, based off this, is not going to go up. Okay, but you had the equal weight trying to hold it up. Trying. Okay? Now, that's it for there. Let's go to daily charts. All right, dailies. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Poof. All right. So, gap down, and it held. We could not fill the gap yesterday. I believe lately with all gaps in prior, we always filled the gaps. We didn't do it yesterday. Okay? So look what we did. We opened here. All you had was that up. And boom, closed at the lows. Below last week's lows. Below last week's close. Below last month's range as well. So, not looking too good, right? S&P 500, where are we now? 669. We are right in the middle of yesterday. Horrible trade location. Okay, let's look at futures. Okay, here's our futures. And you can see we swept yesterday's session. Now we're back inside. Still below last week's lows. Still below last month's lows. Okay. That's a pretty nice buying tail. Because this is a low from the gap down on Sunday. Okay, and then you got that big buying tail. And then we came up, made a swing high, and we pushed back down. Remember yesterday I said I was bearish bias. Hence my short, Hence, technology, it just all worked out. I don't have that daily receipt in my Discord. I wish I did. I didn't have time to do that. But another day where my plan pretty much came out. Okay. So, we're going to go to the Qs. So, the Qs. Look, that's Friday's close. Last week's close, that black line. So, we were above it. Came up. Boop. Opened. Went down. And look, you're still inside this big day. Okay. And we closed at the lows. Now, 200-day moving average is at 590.64. Last month's lows is down here. Last week's lows is down here. Remember, the technologies have been getting money flowed into it. Okay, where are we now? 600. In the middle of yesterday's range. Horrible. At last week's close. Horrible. What does that mean? In the Qs, that pretty much means you've done nothing this week. And that's pretty insane. It seems to happen a lot each week. Where at the end of the week, you're like, okay, we did nothing. Great. Right? Futures. Futures is a mess. Okay, big trading range, but look, we closed here. Okay, closed there. Swept yesterday's session. Now, look what we did. We almost bounced off last week's lows, and now we're trying to push back up. Now, off the bat, we're in a downtrend. We just swept yesterday's lows. So, I just showed you guys we're getting a little oversold. It is Friday, the 13th. Okay? We're battling right now at the most traded price of the week in both the ES and the NASDAQ 100. Okay? Now I can show you a different way to look at it here. I got my Thinkorswim for people who don't have tick data, right? If you have Thinkorswim now, you can kind of replicate what I have in futures a little bit. So I'm going to bring that up. And I'll just show you. It's pretty nice views here. And like I said, if anybody wants me to share it, I'll share it. Let's go to it. All right, now what we're going to start out with is always we're going to look at a top-down approach. Okay, so this is ES futures, right? That's the monthlies. And I talked about this on Sunday night. I said, ooh, we finally broke out of this 3-month range, right? But look, you got good support at 60, 65.40. We haven't came down there yet. Look at that monthly support. That is some serious support. We didn't come down there. Okay, so notice that. Then if we go to weeklies, notice this huge high volume node here on the left here. That's that 68.98. This price chart goes back. What does it go back? Let me see here. I think it goes back 5 years. Yeah, 5 years. All right, so we're building up some serious trading volume there. Okay, hitting the 30-week EMA right here. Look at that 65.40. What a support there. We haven't hit it yet, though. Now, we go into a daily chart. Now, this is the key here. All right, let's zoom in. The most traded price of the rolling year is 68.63. Okay, notice that hot pink line. Right? Now this is different. All right, this is a continuous contract, so it's going to look different than my Ninja Trader. It is hitting the 200-day moving average here, but it doesn't look the same in my Ninja chart. Okay? But that 65.40 is a real deal level there. So let's pay attention to that 65.40 level. Okay, now if we want to look more into the last month, Most traded price of the last month is 68.75. Let's see if that lines up with what I have. It probably does. 68.75. Okay. And then I have month to date anchor view up, week to date anchor view up, right? They pretty much match my Ninja Traders settings. 67.83. Week to date anchor view up is down here. 67.44s. Yeah, yep. So they line up pretty good. Okay. So you can see the current week, most traded price of this week, 67.17. Like I said, this is not based on tick data, but it's a real good starter. Okay, real good. Just wanted to show you guys that. Let's look at Bitcoin real quick. Let's just see how that looks. All right, so notice that high volume node here, right there. Around, what is that? Around 68,000, let's call it. That's a real high volume node here. You can see this right there. And we're trying to take out that. If you do take out that, woof, you don't have, we have poor structure. Poor structure. Okay. Let's go back a little bit here. There's the monthly chart. Look at that. Came right down to this level, 60,000. Okay. Look at the consolidation right here. That's why that market stopped there. All right. That's why it stopped there. So we'll have to see. Okay. Now, let's get into hourly charts. We have some interesting things going on here. Okay. Here we are. Let's get my marker out. All right, marker is out. And we'll look at what's going on here. So, that was the Trump sugar rush. That has been taken away. I said that earlier. I said usually when that happens, it gets taken away. It was, and taken away, and more. Okay? Now, look what we did. Look what we did. Yesterday, we closed here. Right? Had a little push up, and then boom. We came right in and tested that swing low. Right there. That's also demand. Came into demand, popped out. Now, no surprise, we're at the most traded price of the week, 67 and change, 6,700. And there's a swing high here. Look what else is here. Last week's lows. So, if this market cannot figure out to get inside last week's range, it's probably going to take a ride down to at least here. Okay, to at least here, and possibly down to the overnight lows. Okay. Now, you can see there's been a downtrend, right? Boop, 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 right there. Okay. A bullish indication would be a boom, a close up here, and then some type of swing low, and then that could pull up and fill that gap from yesterday. But this is the pivotal pivot point, right? Our most traded price of the week, 67.05 about. Right here. All right? Not too hard to understand that. We are in the middle of yesterday's range, which is disgusting, but we are at the most traded price of the week in a supply zone. Supply zone got tweaked for a second, so it's technically, in my eyes, finished. But I can make another one here. Let me do that. So that technically, but look, there is a little hourly supply right there that I could make it right here. So technically it's still in supply. Okay? So this is very crucial right here. Okay? And it becomes a little hard. Why? Well, most traded price of the week, you can see the sheer volume from yesterday. And right? We're back there again. We came in here in the overnight traded volume and dropped. This makes this area very hard to cut through. Okay, now on the downside, you have All right. On the downside, I could see us pulling back to here, right? And you have somewhat of a little demand zone here as well. That could be a pullback to get long. Okay. That could also be your target if you short here. That could give you some problems in this area. Okay. So you're really going to want to see how the market handles this level, 67.03. Do we do this, sweep it, come back under, retest, short that? Target here, target overnight lows. Okay. On the other hand, if we do this, boom, back inside yesterday's range, last week's range, close here, right? Now you break the downtrend. Then maybe say we retest somewhere in here and you get that higher low. This could fill the gap and we could end up somewhere here around 67.51 around last week's lows. It's just a pivot point. So the level you want to see the reaction to is right here, 67.04. There's also a swing high in the overnight highs. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be looking for. We're at a very poor location right here because middle of yesterday's range. Okay, so I expect a lot of games here, a lot of fake outs. Maybe if it just drives up, then you have to look for a pullback, right? Maybe it just drives lower and you're like, oh boy. Okay. Now, move on. Nasdaq. Okay. Nasdaq. Remember, this is structurally stronger because we're still inside last week's range. We never ever made new weekly ranges. But guess what we're battling here? The most traded price of the week. Right here. That box. Okay? What's that price? That price is 24647. Okay? 24647. That is your pivot level in your decision maker for the Nasdaq. Now we just came down here in the overnight. Okay? That's a nice buying excess. Okay? The 4-hour candle. Let's look at this daily candle. I didn't do that in the ES, but I'm doing it now here. Look at that buying excess. That's the daily. Look at the 4-hour. The last 4 hours is very bullish. That could all fall apart. I'm just showing you what the 4-hour and the daily look like. Okay? So remember, 246, let's call it 24650. That is your barometer. Okay? Now, again, the same thing. If you can take this out, pull back here, make a higher low, then you can go into this bearish FEG and then go right, try to fill that gap. If you sweep here, close under here, retest, then you can take out this. You got demand here, so I would be very cautious of holding on to short. Depends how much the market is weak or not. If it's in parity, then I'd probably say take it off in demand. Okay. Now, also, if you just drove down, and swept that low, and then came back inside this range, made a higher low, and the market's not that weak, you probably can get the nice long here too. All right, but we've been in a downtrend, right? You need to break this and hold it, right? The easier trade right now is some kind of failure here. Boop, another swing high, take this out, and we continue lower. But I'm not going to say anything's easy, right? I just showed you that the market's kind of getting a little oversold. And again, I don't go oversold. I got to get long. It doesn't work like that. It's just an observation. It's just a data point. Okay, now we're going to move over to the market profile and the volume profile. And we'll wrap it up. Okay. Yesterday we were gapping down. Today we're in the middle of yesterday's range, even though we had some lower prices. All right. Oh my God. I apologize. You know what we forgot? The news at 8:30. Give me a sec. Let me pull that. Let me see these numbers. Apologize for that. Totally. All right, let's see. 830. Let's see. Well, what I really care about is that core. Oh, okay, nothing burger. Expected 3.1. We got 3.1. It went higher. Now, year over year headline number, PCE, let's see. 2.9. Expected, you got 2.8, so lower than expected. And then you have some GDP numbers. Let's see, price index 3.7, we got a 3.8. Okay, interesting. Interesting. Okay, I don't think it's much market moving. I didn't even hear it. Maybe I was too concentrated. Okay, so I don't really see much there, even though we're pushing up. So sorry. So sorry. Documents calling me out. All right, so now look what we're doing here. That pivot level I talked about, it's moving up. Now, that PCE number didn't really spark that market. That happened 15 minutes ago. So something might have just came out. Who knows what it was? Okay. So we have another thing to look at here. Let's look at it now. This is your market profile, volume profile. Okay. So I just talked about that pivot level around the 6704s, 6703s, right? Market's back over it. Market's where? Yes, back in last week's range. That orange line is last week's lows. Now we have a very nice looking profile overnight. That's a completed profile if you ask me. Look at this liquid level. I would take some profits from these lows here. Okay. This is the line in the sand, folks. What do we do? What do we do around that level? Okay, remember, we're still in a downtrend. Okay, so let's look at this. Break it out. Boom, just like that. See, we're getting some buying excess here. Or selling excess. Right there. Okay, so remember what I said. If we sweep that level, okay, get right into scenarios. I'm not going to play around anymore. Okay, let's get right into scenarios. Just talked about this earlier. Okay. If we sweep here, any closure back inside here, like a closure, hold back under that most traded price of the week, and it can't get over it. I'm using the wrong color here. Start out with the shorts. Okay. So, if we close back under here again, hit our head against 67.3 again, you can take all that structure out to about here. Maybe get a pullback, take out the overnight lows, 66.40s. I don't know how much success you'll have in this demand zone. Okay? Being honest with you, if I'm looking at today, I can see one or two things happening that I'm looking at this. Okay? That's my short scenario. Okay? Now, I'm going to get into that third window in a second. Let's go with a long. What do you want to see if you want to get long? Well, remember the pivot level 6703. Remember, this is last week's range. Up here, you have an unfilled gap above us. So, what you want to see is one or two things. We push up. Maybe we try to fill the gap. We fail. Retest this level. If this is supportive, even if we do this and then this and then this, that's a long. You target gap fill from the other day, 67, like 49.75s. Then you got a bearish FEG with more poor structure. You can go all the way back up to possibly 67.87. Now, okay, I like longs above that level. The one thing that I would possibly accept is if you just drive down, like quickly, sweep this, right, and then get some higher low back in. That could be the long. Okay, now, door number three, what I was talking about. Okay, we just had this big wick. Does this get taken out? I would say highly unlikely. This is just me, look, my experience. We just came from here, 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 boom, right? So, into demand, right? Now we're trying to break this downtrend. What I can see happening is one or two things. Either this holds and you get a nice bullish day where we rip up, or I think we do this. Come down, try to take that out, maybe even kiss it, come back, and then we do this into the weekend. Now, why would I say that? Because I think that we're a little too overdone selling wise right now. We just had some buying excess put in. I think it's now either a bull charge or a day where we range. I don't see it where the market rips down, especially with those oil and sanctions for Russia. They're lessened. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. And that's not me saying I'm right or wrong. It's just seen this before. Okay. Let's get into the Nasdaq. Nasdaq's at a very balanced profile. Okay. Very balanced. Remember, it's structurally stronger than the ES. Money's been flowing into tech. Okay. So let's look at it. So, where are we? The midpoint of yesterday, horrible. Okay, you don't want to be in the middle of a prior session. It's just not a good area to be in. We still have an unfilled gap here. That lines up with the most traded price of this year. The anchored view up for the month, anchored view up for the week, still below it. Okay. Now, this is our pivot. Remember, the 246 around 5 zeros. That's the most traded price, and that's an RTHS. Okay. We're below 249. Remember, I said that was all bearish posture yesterday, hence why the markets went lower. You have to recognize bearish posture, like the market environment. Like I said, there's a lot to process, but that takes time to recognize all of what I'm saying. Okay, balance profile. Balance profile. See this thin here, so we'll have to see. We're at a very crucial level here. Okay. Okay. Remember, this is your level, your pivot level at 24650 right there. Okay. Before it used to be the 249s, now it's this level. So how do we play it? Same thing as the ES. What is that? 6703, I think it was. Yeah. Okay. Same thing. You just broke this supply zone. But look, looks like some people are taking some profits. Got some nice thinned out profile here. If you can dip below, hold that, you might have a short on your hands. Now, let's go into scenarios. No point to just say that without putting scenarios up there. Let's do it. So, like I said, right now the market's telling us the short is the easiest play is short. Okay, if you sweep, close under this 24650s, right? Try one more time, right? Put a lower high in. You come through. That's your most traded price of the overnights right there, and of yesterday. You're probably going to take all this out and maybe start, I would say, look to the 250s to take some profits. You have a lot of demand below here. I don't think that's going to be very easy to cut through. Okay, we've been going down. Like I said, I just don't see this market just ripping lower today. I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. All right, so I would say be very careful here. We had last week's lows at 24350s. I don't know if we really do that unless something cataclysmic happens in news or something, but who knows? You never know. Okay? It's kind of all I'm interested in as a short. All right? Now, long. Okay? All you care about is 24650s in the NASDAQ. What I want to see is, remember, we're in the middle of yesterday, so get ready for some games because it's the most traded price of the week. It's in the middle of yesterday. It's a game are going to be played here. Unless the market just drives, I can see a whole lot of up in here, and you're going to be like this. Oh, ooh, ah. All right, so we really have to see what happens at this level. Okay, if the market goes like this, maybe it slams into the week to date anchor VWAP, right, in this bearish FEG, slams back down but holds, maybe even does this and goes whoop, you hold it, that's a long, and you target gap fill around 24873s. Now if you fill that gap, you might be able to smash back into 249s or higher. That is what I'm saying. I think there's a bullish surge that can happen today and go, all right, we're back in the middle of nowhere. Okay? Or we range. Now, if this market happens to do this quickly, like zoom into this demand, right? Into this demand. And like I said, I don't think we're taking overnight low. Well, that's a little poor low here. Maybe we do in NASDAQ. And just do this. Whoop. Back in. Higher low. You target the 24650s. Okay? And why? Because that opens up the door number 3, which I talked about earlier, is I really believe that we either do this today or we're getting that bullish surge. I don't see us breaking down. Like I said, that's just what I'm saying right now. Now, if the market opens up and the internals are horrendously weak, then, I don't know that yet. Okay? I don't know that yet. Don't hold my feet to the fire. All right. Now, smash that like button if you enjoyed that analysis. All right? Help my channel out. Okay, now, please join me every morning. Subscribe, set that alert. Give you the market story, the economic calendar, the market news, the leaders and the laggards, technical analysis, and I just gave you the long and short trade scenarios in NASDAQ and ES futures. I give you a lot. All right, I give you a lot. Now, if you want the more in-depth coverage, if you want those gamma levels when the market opens, you're going to join my Discord, Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay? When I'm live, documents are still here. He can attest. When I start talking like, oh, look at here, look at that, and look at this, and this is blah, 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 and I start getting a little passionate, it's probably a good shot that you're going to want to follow what I'm saying. Okay? Remember what I just said of what the probability of I think today could be. Okay? Just remember what I said. Okay? Now, everybody, have a great weekend. We'll leave next week's FOMC on Wednesday. Okay? This market's still wild. Oil, the Strait of Hormuz is all in question. This war is not over. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things we don't know. But what we do know is we keep pricing in war. And eventually, we're going to be numb to it. Just like Ukraine and Russia started out. It starts out negative. Crude goes up, all this stuff. But then eventually the market prices in and forgets about it. Okay? Wars are not forever. All right. So, hope everybody has a great day, has a great weekend. All right, remember, no trade to trade. Hope everybody can abide by their rules. Remember, mental capital is very important. The more you break those rules, the more your mental capital goes down, then you less are to trade the way you're supposed to. It happens to everybody. It happens to me. Even though this week I'm having a pretty good week, I know at a moment's notice I can just be stupid and break a rule. And once you break a rule, it goes one or two ways. You shut it down if you can't handle it mentally, or you recoup, or you fall apart. Okay? And I've done all of the above where, I don't like that. Let me lock it out. I had a good week. I've also done, let me try one more, and then let me try one more, and then let me try one. Next thing you know, you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And then your mental capital is destroyed. Okay? It feels really good when you don't trade, right? And here's one thing I'll leave you with, and I'm going to tell myself for this myself all week. Early on, with my pre-market plans that I'm telling you, is my highest percentage to hit a trade. Once the market gets into the 11:30, 11:45, 12, the volume starts to drop unless there's a catalyst or something that's gyrating our market. Okay? And what I've noticed is, obviously, this is not rocket science, the highest volumes in the beginning of the day. Okay? So sometimes if I got 9 out of 10 criteria, it's probably a good trade to take. Because as the market goes on in the day, that big volume goes away. The market becomes, the tempo slows down. All right? So I'm going to try to make sure I say one thing in my head. Is this worth the risk? Usually when I ask myself that question, is it worth the risk with everything I'm seeing, all the things I look at, right? Is it worth it? If I'm just like, F it, and I get in a trade, I know Documents is here. I've heard him say that once, and I'm like, oh, that's not good, right? When you and I've done that plenty of times. And that generally means one or two things. Either you're not patient enough, you're getting impatient, and you just want to do something, right? You just want to do something, which usually is never the good move. Whenever I'm like this, this is really not my, but I think I see, and I might see. As soon as I say the might and I think, or I'm telling my community, I don't know, this is doing this is doing that, it's kind of like, right away, it's probably you don't really have any trade. You just don't. But then, because I know on the other side, like yesterday, when I saw, hey, text leading to the downside, I said that pre-market. I said you need to have tech being weak. It's been strong every day. Check. Then I saw the divergence in the internals. Okay, I saw the divergence. That equal weight. All I was waiting for is that equal weight to start to go down, and woo! That thing fell. That thing fell, and that was my edge. Right? It was like, okay, you know this is your edge. See, when I think like that, and you have something that you've seen before, that's when you pounce, and it's worth the risk. Otherwise, let's say you're not talking like, I see this, I need this, I need that, and you're just like, short, or I'm long, and there's not much, there's not much to it. There's not much criteria to it. I know when I'm doing it, because I'm like, how I'm talking. I could be like, oh, all I need to see is this, and all I it's hitting. No, if I'm not saying a bunch of stuff like that's driving my conviction, and it's just like it's probably not a trade. I know it's not. All right. So everybody, enough of that soliloquy. Have a great day. Hope to see you in my Discord. All right. Everybody, if I don't see you in there, I will see you Monday morning.